This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure to order Jamie Glazov's new critically acclaimed jihadist psychopath, how he is charming, seducing, and devouring us. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, Elizabeth Warren threatens Israel. Our guest this evening, Daniel Greenfield, a Shillman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center and the editor and writer at the blog The Point at Front Page Magazine. Daniel, welcome to the Glazov Gang.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you so much. Daniel, at Jihad Watch recently, Robert Spencer ran a blog on Warren threatening Israel. The title was Warren Threatens Israel, except, quote, two-state solution, or, quote, everything is on the table, end of quote. And Robert Spencer is always covering the urgent matters and crises of the day. Daniel, what do you make of this? This is somebody that is trying to become the leader of the United States and is threatening Israel about having to accept the two-state solution, which I think we can agree is no solution at all.
It's no solution at all, but Elizabeth Warren is competing for her radical left-wing base with Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders' campaign at this point consists of Islamists and more Islamists. His campaign chair, Faisal Shakir, is a guy who at one point was tied to a fundraising event for a Hamas front back in Harvard. He's gone to the ISNA convention. He actually had his heart problem in the Pakistani halal restaurant. His proxies include people like Linda Sarsour. So Elizabeth Warren is competing for that demographic. And to do that, of course, she has to go after Israel because that's the big thing. I mean, she's gone after the whole Yemen issue, but she's also now going after Israel, which is entirely predictable because her demographic is the left, radical left. And to do that, she has to convince these people that would be at least as radical as Bernie Sanders, if not more so. So, of course, she's escalating the threats against the Jewish state.
So, in other words, she's trying to ingratiate herself with Jew haters and anti-Semites.
Exactly, those on the Islamic side and those on the left, because that is really where the Democrats are at this point.
Well, and I think that in terms of anti-Semitism, there's quite a long record in the Democratic Party.
There is indeed, but the trajectory for it very much is coming from the left. So the further left you go, the crazier you go. And Elizabeth Warren has brought in anti-Israel people in her campaign. She brought in people like Max Berger from If Not Now, which is an anti-Israel hate group that targets Jewish charities and Jewish organizations. She's gone to work with assorted anti-Israel people on the left. So she's very much been signaling that she is going to be the anti-Israel candidate. And right now, she's actually being more vocal about it. Now, in the past, she's taken a more moderate stance. But again, at this point, we're seeing the radicalization of the Democrats. Part of that radicalization is not just the domestic stuff. It's not just the cultural warfare. It's also being anti-Israel, which means if you really want to lay claim to being the most progressive candidate, air quotes there, you have to be militantly anti-Israel. You have to be able to threaten the Jewish state. You have to be able to one-up everybody else who is even more radical than you are. And that's exactly what she's doing.
Daniel, when Elizabeth Warren says that everything is on the table, what does that mean? Now, we know that this term has been used by American leaders in American foreign policy. Everything is on the table. That's quite an interesting thing to say. What are you going to do? Engage in military action against Israel? I mean, what kind of thing is that to say toward the Jewish state?
Well, she's making ambiguous threats, which people will read in different ways. The people who are anti-Israel will indeed read it as Elizabeth Warren would actually consider placing an embargo. She'd consider possibly economic sanctions. She'd consider possibly even military action against Israel. Meanwhile, the people on the left who are actually playing too liberal Jews will convince them, oh, this means really nothing. It means she's just going to pressure Israel. She's going to conduct intensive negotiations, but she's not actually going to do anything really radical. So Elizabeth Warren is very clever. She's much more clever than some of the other people in the Democrats. And she's a lawyer. She knows exactly how to phrase things and how to say things in a way that will create this kind of calculated ambiguity. And I predict going forward, she's going to use that kind of calculated ambiguity, which will tell anti-Israel haters that, of course, she's going to absolutely be completely ruthless. Meanwhile, will tell Jewish Democrats who want to stay in the party that, there's really no reason to worry about it. And of course, the truth, I suspect, is further to the radical side than to the moderate side.
Right. When do you think Elizabeth Warren is going to say that everything is on the table in terms of acting against Palestinian leaders who consistently promote genocide against Jewish people and who actually give cash to the families of terrorists who killed Jews? When is Elizabeth Warren going to say that everything's on the table against those forces?
Roughly somewhere between never and doomsday. Every single Democrat in the race, and I do mean every single Democrat in the race, maybe I've overlooked some people, all of them endorse overturning what President Trump did and restoring aid to the Palestinian Authority. That aid ends up going, hundreds of millions of it, into the pockets of terrorists. It ends up funding terrorism. If it continues the so-called pay-to-slave program, which will actually provide salaries and benefits to terrorists, and the terrorists are killed in the process of an attack, to their families. This is literally money that is being used to fund attacks, to fund the murder of Jews. In Israel, it's also been used to fund the murder of non-Jewish Americans. In Israel, that's where the Taylor Force Act came for. Taylor Force was a United States veteran. He was visiting Israel. He was murdered. His killer was rewarded for it. But at the same time, I have to emphasize this again. Every single Democrat in the race, certainly every single major Democrat in the race, has made it very clear they are going to restore aid to the Palestinian Authority, which means all of them, not just Elizabeth Warren, will support funding the murder of Jews.
What a party. We're not going to see this on CNN, I don't think, on MSNBC. I don't think Anderson Cooper's going to do a 1-hour feature on it. I don't think Don Lemon and Rachel Maddow will either. But you mentioned this individual's name. Elizabeth Warren recently hired an aide who worked with If Not Now, which is a Jew-hating group, Max Berger. I mean, where is the media on doing a spotlight on her actually hiring this guy? Tell us a little bit more about this guy. This is just unbelievable. This is an anti-Semite. The watchdog website Cannery Mission has documented, the activities of anti-Israel activists, including this guy. He's defended anti-Israel agitators. He's supported BDS. I could go on. What do you make of this with Berger on board with Warren and of course the establishment media completely silent?
It's actually even worse than that. The establishment media is completely on board with If Not Now. And when we're talking about If Not Now, this is an astroturfed hate group backed by the usual suspects, whose specialty has been actually harassing Jewish organizations, harassing Jewish charities, attacking them for continuing to support Israel. This is a classic anti-Israel, anti-Semitic hate group. At the same time, its members have gotten deep into political campaigns. Back in 2016, Bernie Sanders hired one of If Not Now's top people as his Jewish outreach person. That didn't work out very well for him. He ended up losing New York in part over that. A number of other campaigns have actually posed. They've met with If Not Now people, including Elizabeth Warren, including, I believe, Cory Booker. So this is, again, it is a sign that Elizabeth Warren is extremely radical, but it's also a sign that the Democrats themselves as a whole are becoming increasingly radicalized. Groups that are anti-Israel, groups that support terrorism, groups that effectively, even though they deny it, support the murder of Jews, are gaining mainstream political power. They're gaining access to presidential candidates on the Democratic side. The bottom line of all this means that the Democrats are increasingly more and more open about supporting the murder of Jews.
Right. Very, very disturbing, very sad, very disgusting. The Democratic Party on the issue of Israel. We know that Obama betrayed Israel, enabled its enemies. Terrible record. Daniel Greenfield, what is our conclusion on Elizabeth Warren threatening Israel?
It's ugly, but again, it is a sign of where the Democrats are headed. The Obama administration moved the dial significantly on anti-Israel activities, and at the same time, many Jewish Democrats continue to support Obama. When Obama backed the Iran deal, they backed the Iran deal. So if Elizabeth Warren is gambling that those same Jewish Democrats are going to continue supporting her, tragically, she may very well be right. These are the same people who had no problem with Obama sending billions of dollars to Iran. And that is, again, direct funding of terrorism. They have no problem with the direct funding of terrorism by the Palestinian Authority. If Elizabeth Warren actually escalates a conflict with Israel, I'm not sure if they do have a red line or if there's at some point where they would draw the line and say this is unacceptable. And certainly Elizabeth Warren has every reason to think that the same people who supported Obama, the same Jewish Democrats, are going to support her.
Wow. Daniel, I mentioned Obama just before we go. Why do you think he's been silent? I mean, he endorses Justin Trudeau, for instance, somebody in another country, but he hasn't said anything about Biden or Warren. He hasn't really come out and endorsed anybody. Why do you think that is?
I can only speculate, but it seems like he did at some point have a plan for putting his own candidates into the race. That plan never went anywhere. Seemingly, the favored candidate of his people never actually ran. Elizabeth Warren doesn't like him, and he doesn't like her. Joe Biden is his guy, but I don't think Obama trusts him very much. And beyond that, I don't think there's a candidate in the race that he really likes and that he thinks he could put over the top. If that changes, I suspect he would come out.
Right. Daniel Greenfield, thank you for joining us so much this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you for everything you do.
And thank you. Viewers of the Glazov Gang, make sure you go to Daniel Greenfield's blog, The Point, at frontpagemag.com. When you do not do that, you are missing out big time. Please remember, we are a fan-generated program. Please go to jamieglazov.com to support this show, if you support us. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang. Good night.